It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and we have finally made it, ladies and gentlemen, the final weekend of 2006. December 29th, 2006 to be exact, right in between Christmas coming to an end and the New Year just around the corner. So we have 6 movies here. Some notable ones, some not so notable ones, but there are a couple of really good movies that we got this weekend to look at. So let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump on into it, and we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Black Christmas. And I know what you're thinking. A remake of a 1974 movie directed by the same guy that would later give us Porky's and A Christmas Story, a horror classic for many cult people, a horror cult classic, I should say. No studio would be that stupid and that means it mindless to put this movie out on Christmas Day and think it was going to make any kind of a profit whatsoever. Oh, Harvey Weinstein, you smug son of a bitch. You really thought that people were going to be suckered into this movie, and, not surprisingly, the film did not do very well. And, really, it's not that hard to see why, but I'll give it this. It's certainly a lot better than that god-awful Blumhouse 2019 Me Too remake they did. I mean, that one is just... Oh, that one is just a bad on so many levels. But this... Well, let's look at the plot of it. You have a film that takes place several days before Christmas and tells the story of a group of sorority sisters who are stalked and murdered in their house during a winter storm. And this is produced by Glenn Morgan and James Wong. Of course, they worked on the X-Files. They did the Final Destination movies. So there is good talent involved in here. I mean, there's a good cast involved in here, too. Michelle Trachtenberg, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Lacey Chabert, Andrea Martin's in here as well. So there is good talent in the film. And it's not a bad idea to remake this movie, but yeah, you're remaking a Christmas horror movie that was controversial back in the day, and even had controversy on this day, is when this came out. But even then, like, was there really a need for a controversy for this? Because anybody could look at this movie and realize there's no way this is making any money, especially if it's opening on Christmas Day, which... I mean, this feels like a move where they just dumped it out there because they knew this was not going to make any money, per se. Like, if this was a direct-to-video movie or a streaming film, I think this would have found much more success, and, you know, hey, people could just turn it off if they don't really like it all that much, and don't have to go out there being like, oh, this movie is so offensive, and, like, even though we're not paying attention to the fact that it's literally marketed as a horror film. Yeah, but it's just like, yeah, but with all that said, though, the film isn't great at all. I mean, it's a lousy movie. It really falls into the same predictable scenario we've seen with many other slasher films of the day. Like, it's not doing anything newer that the original film didn't do that was done much better. Yeah, it's in a modern setting. You've got these younger ladies in here who are clearly more than over college age, per se. But, hey, they're in here, they're good looking, and yeah, this is the type of film that really should not have been put out around Christmas Day, or even put out in theaters the way it was. Like, there's really nothing about this movie that makes it worth it in the end. None of the kills are really that interesting. You don't really give a shit about any of these characters whatsoever. Yeah, the violence, yeah, it's just there to be violence for the sake of violence, because we're in the age of Saw and Hostel. That's the new norm for slasher films, and yeah, people were not stupid enough to go see this movie and make it a success. It came and went, crashed and burned at the box office, and was largely forgotten for many, many years afterwards. But yeah, like I said, it's at least better than the remake that came after it, which really isn't saying a whole lot, but I gotta give it that. But, yeah, other than that, though, there's not much more you can really say about this movie that hasn't already been said already. It's not a great movie by any means necessary. It's a forgettable film, so yeah, just avoid it like the plague. But with all that said, let's get to some good stuff finally. Let's get to some movies that are more notable, much better than movies like Black Christmas. Starting with the first one we have here, Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. Maybe the movie that made everyone realize, hey, Guillermo del Toro is probably one of our great directors. This is a story that takes place in Spain in the summer of 1944, and it's a narrative that intertwines the real world with a mythical world, centering on an overgrown, abandoned labyrinth and a mysterious faun with whom the protagonist, Ophelia, interacts with. Ophelia's stepfather hunts down the Spanish Marquis, who resists the Francois regime. While Ophelia's pregnant mother grows increasingly ill, Ophelia meets several strange and magical creatures who become central to the storyline. leading her through the trials of the old labyrinth garden. And this is pretty much what Guillermo del Toro does so well. This movie is incredible to look at from a visual perspective, from a storytelling perspective, from a character perspective. This really is one of his strongest achievements as a filmmaker, if not his best film overall. And he's made a lot of good movies before this and since then, but a film like this works so well because it uses practical and CG effects to really good perfection. Like, you really can't tell which is which in this case here. And I think it really is a film that is very much a film that is a must-see film. This is the movie that Aragon was trying to be, that big fantasy film epic, but like Lord of the Rings. But unlike Lord of the Rings or even Harry Potter, this is a film that is much smaller. It obviously has a much smaller budget to it, but the ambition of what Guillermo del Toro brings to the table in here, and the fact that he's using all these practical effects mixed in with the CG, really works to the film's advantage. It is an incredibly put-together film. It's a movie that you can look at every once in a while and just still be amazed at how great this movie is. And it still is a really incredible film that has held up so much over time. It's a masterpiece of a film. It is definitely Guillermo del Toro's strongest film, if not his greatest film overall, but that's really hard to say because the guy has made so many great movies overall. It's amazing he didn't get any Oscars for this. He was nominated for I think this was nominated for Best Picture and Best Director, but unfortunately he didn't win those. But the film did win 3 Academy Awards for the visual work, so yeah, it definitely shows on the screen why it won that, because it's just such a great film, an incredible film overall. I can't recommend it enough. Pan's Labyrinth, a must-see film. I should also note that one of the producers on this is Alfonso Cuarón, which coincidentally ties into the next movie because he directed the next movie that we have here, Clive Owen, Michael Caine, and Julianne Moore, in the sci-fi thriller Children of Men. So yeah, the marketing campaign for this was not the very best, but hey, it still made a pretty damn good movie overall. This is actually a dystopian action thriller. I guess they say it's an action thriller. I would think of it as a sci-fi film, but it's a dystopian action thriller set in the year 2027. So we've got 3 more years before this becomes our reality, which, hey, anything's possible. This could probably still happen, but 2 decades of human infertility have left society on the brink of collapse. Asylum seekers seek sanctuary in the United Kingdom, where they are subjected to detention and deportation by the government. Actually, this might predict the future, all things considered, but Clive Owen plays a civil servant who tries to help a refugee escape the chaos who is actually pregnant. You also have Julianne Moore, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Charlie Hunnam, and Michael Caine among the cast in the film. And just kind of like a Pan's Labyrinth, an incredible film on so many levels. Like, the cinematography is absolutely amazing in this movie. There are scenes that are shot as one take alone. Like, everyone remembers, it's like the one big scene everyone remembers is that when they're driving in the car and you see all these people coming around to attack the car with all of them inside them, including the pregnant girl. And the camera's just moving around in a slow motion as this is happening. It's just like, it's a really impressive shot that really builds up the tension and shows the intensity of the situation in general. And it's just such a beautiful shot put together here. And it really shows Alfonso Cuarón's ability to direct, to show that Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was not a fluke. This guy is seriously a really good director that can direct a lot of really cool action sequences. The story overall is very good. The casting overall is really great. And the cast in here is absolutely pitch perfect. I mean, this is an incredible film, an amazing film that still holds up, and it's gotten even better as time has gone on. And like I said, may predict the future overall, depending on what happens in the next couple of years. Never say never, I say, but yeah, this is a really good film. I don't think I have to say too much more about it because everybody knows how good of a movie this is. And if you haven't seen Children of Men yet, what are you doing, man? You're doing yourself a huge disservice by not watching it. Go and see this movie, Children of Men. It's a must-see film. So now with all that said, let's go ahead and move back to some lesser films. Let's go ahead and move on to the first one here. Cate Blanchett and Judi Dench starring in Notes on a Scandal. So the story's pretty much what you think it is. You have Cate Blanchett, who's a veteran, Judi Dench is a veteran teacher who uncovers another teacher's illicit affair with an underage student, the other teacher being Cate Blanchett in this case. Bill Nighy is also in the film as well. And yeah, we've seen movies like this that have been so similar to other movies of this type. We've seen it's largely TV movies of the week where, it's always a story about, the hot teacher or who falls in love with the student, and it's just like, you have to kill my husband so we can be together, when it's actually just a ploy for the teacher to have her husband be killed, and she gets off scot-free. And This movie definitely feels like that at times, but in some ways, but in other times, it really does not feel like a film that we've seen done before. And it works mostly because of the cast involved in here. Judi Dench, Cate Blanchett, two of our greatest living actresses. They are really putting their all into this. It's a really intense film overall. It's a good job of doing something that's very different from outside the norm of what you expect from a story like this. It does keep you on the edge of your seat of how this is going to pan out in the end. And it really is well put together overall. It's a great film that works on so many levels. A really good cast holds it together. It's a story that we've seen done before, but not in the way that this movie does it. I think it works very well to the film's advantage, how this plays out overall. So yeah, I give it a lot of credit for doing that. It's a really good film, a really good underrated little gem of a film. Check out Notes on a Scandal. With all that said, let's move on to the next film we have here. I almost said last, but we're not done yet. Our next movie here, and that is Perfume, the Story of a Murder. Yeah, maybe Run Lola One was probably a lightning in a bottle moment for this director because, yeah, he has not made that many good movies since then. But this is a film set in 18th century France where you follow the story of Jean-Baptiste Gounod, played by Ben Whishaw, who's an olfactory genius and his homicidal quest for the perfect scent. You have a cast also includes Alan Rickman and Dustin Hoffman in here. This is a movie that largely came and went, and kind of hard. It's not that hard to see why. The movie really is way too weird for its own good. I mean, this is a film that's just so completely out of nuts and out of the blue insane at times of how the story moves along in here. There's a random orgy that happens with all these people from this town that I guess is there to serve a purpose to it, but at the same time, it just comes off as one of the weirdest, most disturbing things ever, and not in a good way either. It's just kind of like, there's really no point to having this in the movie per se. It's just there to be kind of like it feels like it's being there to sell the film on something when the movie really has no purpose to it whatsoever. The story really isn't that engaging. Some of the performances are not that great either. Dustin Hoffman's kind of forced into this. Alan Rickman's not that strong in here. Ben Whishaw, usually he's a very good actor, and he is the one thing I would say carries the film over to being somewhat passable overall, but the motivations for this movie really do not work at all into what the film's trying to accomplish here, and it just gets boring every once in a while. Like, it really struggles to find a way to keep the audience entertained throughout the course of its runtime. And it's not a long film at all. Actually, it is a long film. What am I thinking? It's over 2.5 hours long, and not much really happens to give the film that edge that's something that should be something that people want to see, and I just don't see it in here, man. Maybe other people do, and I'm just not seeing it, but I was really bored by this movie. It was a really lackluster film, a waste of a lot of really good talent, and just shows that this director, who really impressed everybody almost 10 years ago with Run Lola Run, seemed like a one-trick pony, because everything he's done since then has not been that good. Like Cloud Atlas, The International, and yeah, this one, definitely not one of his better films. So yeah, that's a pass on Perfume, the Story of a Murderer. So let's see if we can end the show on a high note this week. Here's Renee Zellweger and Ewan McGregor starring in Miss Potter. Miss Potter. This is based off the life of children's author and illustrator Beatrix Potter, who of course came up with such characters as Peter Rabbit, and combined stories from her own life with animated sequences featuring those characters from her story. And it's definitely a film that doesn't get the proper attention it deserves. It's a really, really good film, directed by Chris Noonan, who gave us Babe. This is actually his first film he had done since Babe. Produced by David Kirshner, who produced a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff. Was also one of the main guys behind Child's Play. And of course, the cast includes Renee Zellweger playing a really good Beatrix Potter in here. Ewan McGregor's really good in the movie, playing her fiance in here. You also have Emily Watson in here. The visuals are very impressive. Their blending of animation and live action is very well done. It almost feels like they're trying to mirror Mary Poppins a little bit here with some of the animation and live action sequences they have in here, and it works very well to the film's advantage. And it doesn't feel like a movie that feels like it needs to play it safe overall. Well, granted, it does kind of play it safe to its own degree. It's never to a point where it really hurts the film in the long run. It's a film that is very much what you see is what you get. The story of Beatrix Potter and the story of how she created this world of these characters that have become so beloved over time. And it's a really good film. It's a really good, fun little story that has you could tell it's a lot of influence. Got a lot of its Let me start that again. You can tell there's a lot of influence from Mary Poppins in here, and it works very well to the film's advantage. It's great seeing this director who did Babe before coming back into his own, and it's really good to see a really solid performance by Renee Zellweger and Ewan McGregor to carry the film over. It's a really good underrated little gem. If you liked Babe, if you like Nanny McPhee, like Mary Poppins, you can definitely find a lot to admire about this movie in general. I think it's a very underrated film. Definitely one that deserves to be seen. Miss Potter, definitely check it out. And so, with all of that said, we have wrapped up 2006 here on Time About the Movies. Now, I have decided on what I'm going to do for the Leftovers show, which I usually do in the first weekend of the year. But because we already have 2 weekends coming up with a lot of movies coming, and we only have a weekend that only has one big new release to talk about. That's going to be in the middle of the month on January 19th. I'm going to hold that off the 2006 Leftovers for the January 19th show, because next time around we have 3 movies to kick off 2007. Hilary Swank starring in the sports school drama Freedom Riders. Another movie that's trying to copy the success of Shrek would do a modern version of modern-day fairy tale with it, Happily Never After. And Cedric the Entertainer, along with Nicolette Sheridan from Desperate Housewives and Lucy Liu in the comedy Codenamed The Cleaner. Comedy in quotation marks, because this isn't really a comedy, but we'll take a look at those movies. This is usually the dumping time, one of the dumping months of the year, and needless to say, the 3 movies that we'll have here are definitely movies that are being dumped out on these weekends coming up here. But we will take a look at those 3 movies. That'll be on the next episode. And like I said, the 2006 Leftover episodes will be coming up on the January 19th episode we do, which should be on Saturday, if my math is correct here. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, and hit that bell because you get updates on when new videos come out, and we post here every day, so you get updates on when those come out almost immediately, or within a day or so. I don't know how that system works, but you get updates and notifications when those come out, regardless. But with all of that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.